What's up, guys? We got an exciting new box to open today.
Right, we do. That's all. This is it. I don't want to ruin it, you guys, so check this out. Stay tuned.
Alright, so we got this new and exciting box from one of our buddies, and Manny's gonna open it. We're opening it here outside because the lighting's a lot better.
That was bad opening skills. This comes from a good friend of ours, Philip Leeds, out in Colorado. And for you guys who know him, he works with very, very specific reptile, I guess you could say like group. All right, let's see what's in bag number
Arids
one.
only.
Yeah, arids only. So this is the female actually. It's actually a very big girl. Look at this. So
wow.
This is actually a very beautiful colored girl that Philip Leeds produced. This is a Ornate Uromastyx. So actually this is one of the bigger ones I've ever seen in person, especially a female. Obviously she's like ready to go. She's 6 years old right now, and hopefully she'll be producing plenty of babies for us in the future. She's big. All right, let me put her away. Let me get out the other one. We're actually always used to getting baby Uromastyx, so every time we get something big,
and these guys are not going to be for sale. We're going to try to breed them. Because everybody loves these Ornate Uromastyx.
Including me. This is my favorite species.
Now look at this monster animal. Look at the colors on this Uromastyx.
And he's kind of cold, so he's not fired up at all. When these guys get warmer is when they get their full color.
Turn him around so I can see his face too. What? Look at that chunky lizard.
Again, this is another proven breeder male. He's produced actually a lot of babies for Philip in the past, and hopefully he'll continue that streak and produce a lot of babies for us. But just an amazing opportunity we had, and I have always said if I ever get the chance to get some of these incredible animals again to breed, I would, and we did. Look at that. Look how thick this thing is.
The color on this is exceptional.
Can you tell through the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, he's not even close to fired up.
Bring him over here to the sun. Maybe it will help too. I think, yeah, you can see it good.
I love that head color and that.
Yeah, like all the hues of blue, the yellow stripes,
green.
This guy's absolutely crazy. So these are Ornate Uromastyx. These are captive bred. Right? They're captive, right?
This is actually a long-term captive, but he's been in captivity for a very long time.
He was a wild caught?
Yeah, he was an import.
Then he looks great to be an import.
Well, yeah, but he was an import a very long time ago. He's produced tons of babies over the years. This girl.
How long has Philip had this one?
I think it was like 5 years, 6 years, or something like that.
Okay, so that's also a proof that if you know what you're doing, you could definitely get some imports and have them be healthy and you know, and thrive. But I mean, this guy is absolutely incredible. And these guys, obviously they're desert species. They're gonna want a really hot basking spot of around 120 degrees. They like a lot of rocks and a lot of things that they could crawl into. And there's a pair right next to each other.
And the female was captive bred by Philip himself.
Look at the colors.
She's also
on these
like
things.
5, 6 years
Holy
old.
Crap,
these guys live a very long time, so they might sound like it's an old animal. It's not at all.
Yeah, Uromastyx, man, they're super popular. Unfortunately, there isn't enough people producing them in captivity. Philip is probably one of the best in the country, but we're gonna look to maybe, you know, produce some babies, and hopefully in the future, you know, be offering these guys for you. But man, the colors on these are insane. Even the females, like,
I was really surprised with the female. Super colorful, gorgeous female. You could even see some of her raised scales on her legs. You see the blue coloring and stuff.
Yeah.
So this pairing hopefully should make incredible babies. And now we're just gonna go get them set up, and I'm gonna show you guys how we're gonna house these guys. So as David mentioned before, these guys like it really dry since they are from the desert. Now the way you set these up is, actually let me open this up for you guys so you can take a closer look. They are gonna need a hot spot. They're gonna want it about 120 degrees hot spot. And they're gonna want it dry. So the way I set this up is very similar to how my friend Philip Leeds does it. Play a lot of play sand, a lot of pea pebbles. That's gonna help mimic the environment they come from. They don't come from exactly like straight sandy environment. It's more like rocky. So I like to mix the two, and it helps keeps it dry. Also, you're gonna want a lot of rocks, a lot of hides, a lot of caves. Uromastyx love being able to just squeeze themselves in tight, rocky areas. That's how they feel safe. And that's also what they use this spiky tail for, is when they're jammed in an area, predators can't really pull them out. So that's kind of what I set up here. This is going to be the females enclosures. These guys are kind of big, so they are going to need a bigger enclosure. Minimum usually is about 4 feet long. It's actually a really good one for a Uromastyx this size. When they're younger, obviously you could do smaller enclosures for like babies, 20 gallon, 40 gallon breeders, great. We'll do it for a long time. And these guys, we're mainly gonna only feed them leafy greens, spring mix, collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, dandelions, anything like that. Anything leafy, they're gonna wanna eat and they're gonna do well. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, very easy to keep.
Do you give these guys a water bowl?
Do not give these guys a water bowl. They get all the hydration that they need from the leafy greens.
Good.
So
yeah. And as you can see, I mean, they are pretty chill right now. When they get hot, they can be a little bit quicker and stuff, but for the most part, you could tame these guys down pretty well. They make excellent pets, and they are, you know, like we said, this is an import that is a long-term captive, so he's very chill now. But as you can see, man, he's just laying on Manny. He's not really going crazy. Now when he gets warm, it might change a little bit, but I doubt that he's gonna be any more crazy than he is right now, because he's not really stressed out. He's kind of just like hanging out. And so was the female. They're very docile creatures. They're very smart, and yeah, they make excellent pets. They're awesome. They're just hard to find.
Yep, especially captive bred, as David mentioned before. Not many people work with them or are successful with them in the United States and Europe, actually everywhere. There are a handful of people who are very, very good at reproducing them, like Philip Leeds, the Camille Hammers out in Europe. There is few people, but we just hopefully in the future there's gonna be a lot more people breeding them. So most of the time when you're gonna see Uromastyx, they're gonna be imports. Now, if you guys are experienced with animals, you could always get an import and do very well with them. One of the tips to doing good with them is, number one, leaving them alone. Once you set them up, leave them alone, let them settle in. I know you guys are going to want to handle them all the time. That's just going to do more stress to the animal. So just leave them alone for a good amount of time, let them settle in. Also, that's one of the few times I actually recommend people giving them a soak. Is the importation process, a lot of these animals do get dehydrated. So that's one of the few times it will do the animal some good to soak Uromastyx. Also, a good time to soak Uromastyx is after a female has laid her eggs, because again, she's going to be dehydrated from the whole process. And stick to feeding them leafy greens. A lot of the seeds and stuff, especially for imports, it's hard to break down. It's very dry. They're not getting any hydration from it. So that's why it's really good to feed imports, and that's really what we mainly feed our Uromastyx, like leafy greens, some of the tortoise diets out there.
Yeah.
A good way to know what Uromastyx can eat is basically the same thing as these desert tortoises. There's a lot of information out there on what desert tortoises can eat, and that's the same thing these guys can eat. They actually live alongside each other, so their diet's the same.
Yeah, so basically mostly vegetables, a very, very, very small amount of fruit if you want to give it as a treat. Mostly leafy greens, like Manny was saying. As far as their temperatures, like we said earlier, they want a really hot spot of around 120 degrees. And you also want a really high UVB output, because they are desert animals, like we said. You want to make sure that you see here how there's not that much space between the light and the animal. That's how you want it. If the light is way too high, the heat is not going to reach all the way down, and same for the UV. So you want them to be the UV and the heat to be relatively close, but you want to give them enough places where they could cram themselves in, like that spot right there, like in that black tube over there, and in this cave over here. And yeah,
it's good to give them multiple hide spots. You don't want only one hide spot on the cool side. You want hide spot on the cool side, the hot side, in the middle. The more hide spots you give Uromastyx, the better, the happier, the healthier they will be.
Yeah.
So,
and what are some maybe some tips that Philip gave you, that because he's a master with these, with all the arid lizards and stuff? And
so tips as in like for breeding?
Not just breeding, not for this video, but mostly like just overall care, or how he does things at his facility.
Yeah, so one of the things is give these guys space, good amount of space. You know, if always in the past recommended like 40-gallon breeders for some of these Uromastyx, and they're very active. You do want to give them a good amount of space. That's why to me he recommended at least a 4-foot long enclosure. You can do 2-foot wide. So bigger enclosure. He also mentioned kind of stay away from the seeds, the lentils, stuff like that, because like I was saying before, it is hard for them to break it down.
They could eat it, but mostly as a treat.
Yeah, exactly. So stick to more like the leafy greens, the tortoise diets, stuff like that.
Missouri is good for them.
Yep, so this is all the stuff he's had very good luck with. And keeping them separate. Uromastyx, when they're babies, you can get away with it. You can house them in groups and they'll be fine. But as they get bigger, you do want to keep them individual. I know there's plenty of people out there who keep them in groups and they do fine together, but they don't necessarily reproduce the best. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try that. We're gonna try keeping them separate until it is breeding season, which is when right after they wake up from brumation. So January, February. Is usually when they breed. March, really just depending on where you live in the United States. You know, Florida, we get hot January, February. Most other states start getting warmer and they start getting out of brumation around March, April. So it really just depends on where you live.
So brumation for these guys would basically be just to cut back on the daylight time. So instead of having the lights on for 15 hours a day or 12 hours a day, you would cut it back to 10, then 8, then 6,
then 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for a lot of animals, people usually cut off the heating completely. That's not necessarily what happens in the wild. In the wild, even in the wintertime, you're still gonna sometimes have very hot days, especially on like hot surfaces like rocks or stuff like that. So it's still gonna get very hot. It's just not gonna be hot for long periods of time. Like in the summer, you're having 12-hour sunlight, hot days, while in the winter you're having like 4, 5. So it's still important to provide the Uromastyx with the hot spot. It's just you're gonna do that for a smaller time period, only a couple hours a day.
Right, and one interesting thing about these guys, like the babies when they hatch, a lot of the babies, well, pretty much all of them, will start to eat the poop of the adults, and that actually helps their digestion. So what Philip does is he will kind of like collect all the poop from all the adults and grind it up and sprinkle it on the salads of the babies, and he does that for about 2 weeks, and that's what gets them going. It's a crazy thing, but actually bearded dragons kind of work the same way. So yeah, very interesting little detail there about these lizards.
Yeah, and it's actually really good for it gives them probiotics basically. It's really good for their gut, which is why it's so important for raising babies. That's pretty much it. These guys are very simple, very easy, man. As long as you they can handling pretty well, but again, with a lot of these animals, you're not going to want to hold them every day. This isn't a bearded dragon. You can, there's going to be always individuals who tolerate it much better than others, but generally these animals do a lot better when kind of left.
And it just comes down to the animal, right? Like you see this animal is a long-term captive. You could see he is, an animal that's thriving is going to look like this. If the animal is a recent import and he's a little thinner, which Uromastyx in the wild are going to be thinner than this, but you're not going to want to handle it every day, especially if it's a recent import. You want to like let that animal settle in for a couple weeks, even months, before you even start to think about handling, because you want these guys to be thriving for you. And Uromastyx, they could do well in captivity, or they could crash quick if they're imports. So you want to make sure that what we're talking about imports, because that's what's mostly readily available. And I know a lot of you still want one, but it's super hard to find a captive bred baby. Most people just get imports because it's the cheapest thing and it's what comes into the country. So definitely do your research before getting one. Just watching this video is not enough research. Make sure you look up some other care sheets. Make sure you talk to breeders. Like we said, arids only. Philip Leeds is a guy that he specializes in like these arid and desert type lizards, and he is a master with these guys. So we're excited to have one of his breeding pairs, and we hopefully will produce some in the future. Alright guys, that wraps up another video. Make sure you check out our website if you're looking for any animals available, and
a big shout out to Philip for hooking it up for this incredible Ornate Uromastyx pair. Make sure you follow both of us on social media. Theirs is arids only, ours is TikisGeckos. You already know we have YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We got it all, so follow us. And make sure you support who? Who do you got to support, man?
USARK Florida. They're out here fighting for our rights, making sure the government doesn't take all of our reptiles. So please support them. If you're in Florida especially, make sure you're pitching in every now and then, every couple months. You could even sign up to just donate like a single dollar a month if that's all you could do. We would appreciate the support.
And right now they have a crazy animal.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
they're doing a giveaway, or a raffle I should say, a raffle of a Boelen's python
pair.
A pair of captive born babies. That's like the holy grail.
With the enclosure,
with
all of it.
It just gets better and better. It is the holy grail of pythons. Make sure you check them out in their Facebook page and their Instagram page, USARK Florida. See you guys next week.
Love you.